Alright, so I'm starting my third batch of beer. First thing to start off is take a gallon of water, get it up to 150 degrees, and then we'll start steeping our grains. Alright, before I started heating up my water, first thing I did was made a gallon of Easy Clean, rinsed and washed and wiped out my fermenting bucket, so it's nice and clean. Then we'll sanitize it when the wort is boiling during its hour schedule. Alright, so the water has reached 155 degrees. We're going to go ahead and turn it off, and we'll start steeping our grains. Alright, so 155 degrees on the water. Now we're going to soak this. Make sure everything gets completely soaked. Get all that grains in there. And we're going to go ahead and cover it. Let this sit for about 30 minutes. Alright, so we've got about 7 minutes left on this sitting for its 30 minutes after it hit 155 degrees. So what I'm doing now is I'm heating up about 3/4 of a gallon or so. I'll use that to rinse the grains out of the bag. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to add about 1.25 gallons of water in here. I'm going to get the dry malt extract mixed in, doing it before it gets too hot. That way that prevents the steam coming up and getting on the dry malt extract and clumping up. Slow and steady wins, no clumping. Alright, so that was a two-person job. I held the bag over and let my wife pour 1 gallon of quite warm water, so you can see it steaming, to get the rest of the juices out of here. So now we're at a good 3 gallons in my 5-gallon pot. And next up is bring it to a boil. Alright, so now I've got everything mixed together. We're heating this on, heating it up. We've got it on the super boil, massive flames here. So keeping it stirring just to make sure I don't caramelize any more than it has to. The beer is definitely lighter colored than when I used the liquid malt extract last time. Alright, so we have our full-on rolling boil, so we're going to go ahead and set the timer for 60 minutes. And in 5 minutes will be the first hop schedule. So I have 55 minutes left in the boil. And here in just a moment I'm going to use the skimmer to pull some of this hop break off. On the hop break I've already pulled just a little bit of the remaining foam. So that's supposed to add some clarity to the beer, get rid of some of the protein. When the timer gets to 55 minutes left in the time, that's when the first set of hops goes in, 1 ounce of this Sapphire. Just going to pull this little bit of hop break off. Alright, so put my 1 ounce of hops in my nylon bag. It's amazing is how fast and large those little pellets become. Alright, so now that we get to leave this doing its thing for the next approximately 40 minutes, then we will add our next round of hops. I'm going to go ahead and start sanitizing. I already cleaned the bottling, my primary fermenter bucket with some Easy Clean, and now I'm going to use some Star San, so it's 1 ounce for 5 gallons, so I'm just going to mix up about 1 gallon of that, so about 1/5 of an ounce. And then we'll get all my supplies nice and sanitized, including my siphon hose, my siphon, all the stopper. And the other thing that you definitely should do is sanitize this guy. The acid on the Star San will actually pull, as you can see, it's kind of darker up here, cleaner at the bottom. You definitely want it to be cleaner at the bottom when you put it in your wort instead of having it come out clean, because meaning it would leave all that stuff in your wort. Alright, so I got about a little over 4 minutes until the time to add the next hop schedule. So it's still doing its thing. In the meantime, I have sanitized. I ran from the small to the big bucket the sanitizing solution, so everything in there is sanitized, and I'll probably end up putting it in there one more time, but got the star stand on this guy. So this is going to go in about 10 minutes until the boil is over. So we hit that time. It's time to turn off our boil. I put this in a few minutes before just to get it nice and sterilized. Put the second deal of hops in here. So now the last hop schedule is to add as I take it off the heat, and then we'll start cooling it down. Alright, so I added the last hop schedules in there. So it'll get to do its thing while it's clean, while we are cooling off. Alright, so I just moved this over, put it on a bed of ice, got this running, and as you can see from the amount of smoke, it is definitely quite hot to the touch. So now I'm going to put some more ice around the outside to help it cool down, hoping to get it down into the 70s within well under 30 minutes. Lid on it to keep debris from getting in there, what is now a sterile wort. Just about an entire 10-pound bag of ice, plus half of what was in my normal fridge. Handy trick I learned to get your thermometer so you can see where your temperature's at. Spray bottle full of star sand so you don't have to dip. So right at 10 minutes and down to about 85 degrees. Not bad. So now I'm going to give one last sterilization to the bucket. I'm going to shake my star sand all around, make sure I get all the nooks and crannies in the lid. Then I'm going to run it through the auto siphon one last time to make sure it's nice and sanitized, and then we'll move the wort from there to in here. Alright, so this is the wort, cooled down to about 75, and as you can see, that copper coil comes out nice and clean. It doesn't matter about getting air into the beer. We've got to aerate it here in a minute anyways by shaking it around after we add our water to it. So getting air into it right now is no big deal. Although we are trying to minimize any sediment at the bottom here whenever you're moving it over. So giving it a tilt like this will help you get the most out of it, and again, try not to get the sediment on the bottom. One thing I did do is use the star sand to spray the inside of the lid to make sure it was nice and clean. Cover this up, go get my cold water. So right now, actually aerating the wort is a good idea. Last time I actually ran my auto siphon through a filter to get it through the strainer to give it extra oxygen. I figure I can just do the same thing with the water going in this time. What I'm doing here is I'm going to spray my safe ale and my scissors with some star sand, make sure they're nice and sanitized, then I'm going to dump it in the bucket. In the meantime, I did pull out a sample so we can check the specific gravity for our starting. Pitching the yeast in the past, all I've done is just kind of nicely made it around. I know a lot of times they say put it in some warm water ahead of time to give it a start, but I'm thinking this is just fine. The last couple of batches have come out very, very well. From there I'm going to put the lid on and shake it vigorously for a couple minutes. I ended up a little bit over 5, like right to the rim here, because I know there's going to be sediment and I want a full 5 gallons when I'm done. Right, so I just put my thumb after spraying some sanitizer on it, shook the bottle back and forth quite vigorously. Now we're going to put this guy down in there real good, and then I'm going to fill it up with some water to the fill line, actually with some sanitizer, and then put the lid on. Well, double check my pitching temperature, and we're about 53, 54-ish. So a little cooler than I was expecting, but be just fine. Alright, so the brewing's done. I went ahead and cleaned everything up. Just rinse everything off. And the last thing to do is take our hydrometer reading. I did want to make sure that this got back to room temperature, about 72 degrees, so I could get a correct measurement. Now each one of those ticks is 0.02. So on here, you can see how many ticks there, so it's 2, 4, 6, and some change. So we'll say 1.057 is our starting gravity. After the yeast does its job, we'll measure it again. That'll tell us how much alcohol is in the beer. So just about all my supplies fit in my 5-gallon brew pot. And this is what I use for my fermenter. Just keep it in there. You never know if it goes crazy and comes over. That's what I hear, so take little precautions. And of course I'm in Texas, so cover it with a Texas blanket. Keep that lovely light away from it. Alright, so we're about 30 hours after pitching the yeast into the wort, and we have active fermentation going on, fairly vigorous. Plan is to let this to continue to ferment in the primary fermenter for probably another 4 or 5 days, until we get, bubble every once in a while, every 30 seconds to a minute. Then we'll transfer it over to the secondary fermenter.